now. We are approaching adolescence, actually. And the topic of this week is heritage and tourism in the Caribbean. So looking at both aspects, how do they fit together? How does heritage complement tourism? How does it promote it? How does it help to facilitate it? There are lots of things to do. You know, heritage is a very important part of any country and a great attraction if dealt with correctly. So this, of course, the Diamond Roundtable is a space in which we can meet and discuss and think about, consider opportunities for travel and tourism across the Caribbean and further across the globe, but we're focusing, I'd say, primarily on the Caribbean. How do we build sustainable tourism? How do we build cultural tourism that enriches and enhances our communities, gives us opportunity to be self-reliant, to be economically independent? So these are all the sorts of things. You know, what about the role of youth? These are all the things we've been discussing. And of course, this is the brainchild of Atiba, our brother here, Atiba Visions, as he seems to be called on these calls. The man himself who runs a number of platforms, including Destination TNT and Caribbean Global Destination. So Atiba, shall I just hand over to you just to do an introduction, please?
Well, welcome one and all to the land of Fet, Trinity born. Yeah, so it's been a beautiful journey. We're currently at the 10th one. There's no video. Yeah, we're currently at the 10th program, like Isis said. It's been a beautiful journey. We're here, we're moving forward, and we're making great and big things happen. There was a technical glitch earlier when I was sending out the link, but we're here and we're going to continue moving forward.
Okay, so we're talking about heritage, and it would be great to hear from people about maybe their idea. You know, what do you think of? When we say heritage, what do you think of? And where do you think of? Anyone brave enough to start? Otherwise, it's going to end up being Atiba, you know that. And the whole point is to get all of you lovely people to speak. We can hear can see your beautiful face. At least we've got one sister in here. And we want to hear your voices. We want to hear your views. So, yes, what's heritage to you? What do you think of? Where's heritage?
Should I start? I don't have much to contribute today, but when I think
you always have something very important to contribute. Yeah.
As we say in heritage, what come to mind with heritage is history, obviously, and the Great Pyramids in Egypt. Although we don't have pyramids in Trinidad, we have some nice tall mountains.
We've got the Trinity of Mountains.
We are the Trinity Mountain, exactly. That is how we get the name Trinidad, I believe. Yeah, part of the story. So yeah, when you talk about cultural, is all these historical artifacts and very nice sites that preserved, that people would be willing to spend their money and leave their homes and travel to this destination. As we see on advertisements encouraging people to come to heritage sites and all these things. Yeah, so the heritage part of it, I believe some people travel mainly just to see heritage sites.
Yeah.
And be educated about them.
Matthew, I would love to hear more about the conception with the Trinity.
Sorry?
I would love to hear
Trinity Mountains.
More. Oh, about Trinidad Mountains. Yeah. I know much about the mountain, but what I'm saying is that the mountain consists most of the north coast of Trinidad, and there's always a saying that like when hurricanes come in, we are protected by the mountains. Yeah, the hurricane actually divert because of the mountains. Yeah, and there's 3 specific mountains that's why they get the name called Trinity. And they say Trinidad. That is why I tell myself, Selassie, I visited Trinidad, the first in the Caribbean as well, because of our strategic location, and obviously him and brother Eric William was very acquainted.
I suppose the thing about the Trinity Mountains for me is the way you see it, the way they stand in the background. They're kind of looking over us.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You know, like there's that thing, like you stand in a particular place, like I'm trying to think where, and you will just, the way they shadow those mountains. If you're a Trinidadian, you know that's like, you are a Trinidadian, so called. The country you're in is, or the island or the nation you're in is Trinidad, so called, and the geographical marker after which it was named are these 3 mountains, and it's just staring at you.
True.
There's that element. Yeah.
Yeah. If anyone ever traveled from Tobago to Trinidad on the ferry, they would have a better understanding how it's situated, and yeah.
But I mean, if you're standing even like in Belmont,
exactly,
it's just there. And that's where I was born. So the last place I lived really was Belmont, Jerringham Avenue. So basically, for me, the Trinity, yes, that's a brilliant example of heritage.
True.
What it means for people to see it. So, for example, I think the other thing when I was discussing this evening's theme with the Tiba, we spoke a bit about La Brea, the Pitch Lake.
The Pitch Lake, yeah.
And the fact, it was when I was a child, and I don't know, I'm sure that I was led to believe it was like some sort of wonder of the world, but it's definitely a heritage, some sort of heritage site.
Yeah, I believe so. I gotta check on that.
Yeah. So there you go. That's a Trini perspective.
Yeah.
But every single island in the Caribbean is beautiful and has some sort of thing to offer. So I'm just wondering if anyone here can talk about anything else, but also other islands that might have something.
Well, yes, I can only that the experience as well.
Sorry, sis. Yes.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, the way you're talking about the Trinity Mountains is making me feel like I want to visit still. Like, can imagine
yes, you have to visit.
Power I would feel sitting on the top of one of them mountains and crossing my little legs and holding a little yeah.
There's something so powerful about seeing a mountain rising behind you, or being at the top and going down. I mean, Maracas, when you have to go up and down those mountains, wow. I mean, we call them hills, but what you're talking about,
True, I've never been to the Southern Hemisphere, so it's all very exciting to me. But
what about what do you think about when you hear the word heritage? What sprung into your mind? What did you think about?
What sprung into my mind is, as a Jamaican, yeah, just looking at something as simple as our flag, kind of in a certain sense, it explains kind of our heritage in a certain sense. Black for the people, yellow for obviously it's always sunny over there most of the year, and green for the vegetation, because anything can grow in Jamaica. In terms of heritage sites, the first thing that comes to mind are the giant statue heads of our ancestors.
Ah, right. Tell me more about this, sis.
Ooh, I would have to send you a picture. Still, it's these big giant can't remember what they're made of. I just know that it's 7 times more stronger than copper. So no copper tools could have chiseled that. That's a joke. But you know, the thick, black, beautiful lips and the high cheekbones and I see you smiling already. Yeah, that's the first thing that comes to mind. That, and I guess classically, Dunn's River in a certain sense. Bamboo
What about
Alley.
the Blue Mountains, sis? Because one of the heritage things of Jamaica is the coffee. Blue Mountain coffee is it not the most expensive coffee per gram in the world, even more so than the Ethiopian coffee, isn't it?
Ethiopian is, but when you talk of the mountains, the first thing that comes to mind are the maroons.
Yeah, see, that's another. There you go.
Yeah.
Look how much heritage you've already just outlined there.
Mm.
Nice.
So yeah, that's what comes
but you
to
see,
mind.
like how you want to go to Trinidad, I so want to go to Jamaica.
More and go everywhere.
I know. I mean, my dream, literally, and I'm sure it would be the dream of many of us, is to visit every single Caribbean island. I've done a few, but there are so many more to see. And then, of course, every single African country. If I could do that before,
there you go. Yeah. The call to Africa is strong. It's been strong for a very long time, and with the Back to Ghana movement, that kind of opened the floodgates to the knowledge that, hold on a second, Africa is the way, the truth, and the light. Is home. No matter what part of the diaspora you're from, Africa is home.
Asheo.
Mm.
And so that's another interesting point that we might want to talk about. I mean, we are focused very much on tourism heritage in the Caribbean, but of course, as our sister here, sister, I don't know your name,
Oh, my name is Trisina, Tina for short.
Oh no, Trisina. Okay, sorry, that's you. You had your camera off. Right. Oh, you come out to play now. Okay.
I finally did my hair,
Okay.
I look like somebody.
Okay. So yeah, the heritage that we have in the Caribbean, obviously for most of us, will also go back to Africa. Because without Africa, the kidnapping, obviously trafficking into enslavement, our ancestors, we wouldn't be we were there before, but we wouldn't have been in the numbers we were in the Caribbean, let's put it that way. So is there also within the scope of the conversations to think about, when we talk about heritage in the Caribbean, to think about maybe how we also connect it to something in Africa? And maybe that's also something.
The similarities between the base of our music, the food that we eat,
all of these things.
A lot of similarities. Even the color that we bring to our clothes. We're all about that brightness.
But even the words, I was with some Fulani people in the Gambia, and the mother was saying to me, yam, yam. And I said, are you saying yam? To my friend. He was like, yeah, that's what we say for eat. Well, yam is a Jamaican.
Yeah, Jamaica, we say yam, say.
Exactly. So, and there's so many, if you study the linguistic patterns and the voice and the tone of our language, the way we speak the European languages that's been put upon us in the Caribbean, and the way that our sisters and brothers speak African languages on the continent, you can find the correlation. So again, that's another collection. And I wonder if people understand how much of that heritage of Africa you're going to find in the Caribbean.
Even our tribal stories did that. Like, ask any Jamaican about Anansi, and we will tell you about the spider god.
And that's straight out of Ghana.
Ask any Ghana man the same thing. He'll tell you this.
And in Trinidad, we have a very strong Yoruba tradition. I mean, I lived in a basically an Orisha house in Belmont, and I went to Orisha temples and took part in Orisha celebrations in the hills there, and so we have a strong tradition as well about African heritage going on.
You said Orishas. The first thing that came to mind is the different beautiful smells of the incenses that that particular people burn for certain. There's just
exactly.
So much.
we have that all across the Caribbean. They have it in Guyana. I don't know if anybody on this call knows Sister Michelle Yah Santua. I'd recommend that you check that Sister Queen out. She's fantastic. She's actually a doctor. She's got a doctorate, and she does a lot of work around the Guyanese spiritual traditions, and that shows you the heritage. Yeah, she's absolutely wonderful. And she also does an annual offering to Oshun, the deity of the river. We'd go every year and do an offering in Merton. Was it Mitcham somewhere, Merton? I never remember. Tooting, one of those places. So there's a lot of things
to me, and I
happening.
don't know about it.
So, there are opportunities for us to look at how we can use our heritage as a really strong tool to bring tourism to the Caribbean, both in the sense of us going there, but also encouraging people from elsewhere to go there.
Does the doctor have a YouTube channel?
What I'm going to do is, whilst I'm doing this, I'm going to see if I can find her Instagram or something and share it, and then you can see what she does. She's fantastic. Really amazing sister, yeah.
For that.
So that has been absolutely wonderful contributions from our sister here, Tresina, and she gave us at least probably, 7 or 8 different possible heritage attractions in JA. Plus, we fling in some from TNT. So what else? Where across we had an earlier call. There was a sister from St. Lucia who mentioned the pitons. So we know that's another heritage site, I think. I know that there's a Sulphur Springs, but I'm talking too much. There must be more
There's one
contributions.
There's one more place I forgot. And in terms of talking about heritage and culture and tradition, we need to talk about well-being. There is a hot springs in St. Anne's that the water's it's got potassium in it. You can light it on fire. People drink it and everything. Yo, you need to add that to the JA destinations too.
Wow, I didn't know about that. Now I'm excited. Okay, so would anyone else care to chip in about your ideas? What do you think about when you think about heritage? Where do you think about when you think about heritage? Otherwise, I'm going to put Atiba on the spot again, and you don't want to do that to him now, do you? He wants to hear from you all. Okay.
Apparently, there's another place in Jamaica called Flatbridge. Flatbridge.
And what happens there?
It's a spiritual place.
Oh,
yeah.
I like the sound of that. I love to go in a spiritual place.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very at home there. So yes, again, that's another good point that you're raising, sis. When we go back to the Caribbean, and oh, good, I can see somebody's put their camera on. I'm excited now. When we go back to the Caribbean, we walk into a very spiritual space. And there's a heritage to that because our ancestry exists in the Caribbean in a very different way to which it exists, for example, in Europe, in our Babylon, as some people might say, but in Europe, and our heritage also exists quite differently there as well to our experience prior to leaving Africa. So we need to remember that too. Sis, you put your camera on. Did you want to say something? Sorry, Karen.
Sorry, this will be the last thing I say for a while.
No, it's okay.
As far as I'm concerned, in terms of heritage, as long as the earth is red, I'm home.
Red earth. Yes. That's another good point. It's a different color earth. In fact, the earth
is rich.
West Africa is
rich
red.
Earth.
It's true. The earth is even different. And the grass, have you noticed the difference in the thickness of grass when you're in the Caribbean or West Africa? Look at a strand of grass in the Caribbean or West Africa, and you will see how thick and strong it is compared to a blade of grass rather than over here. So there are all sorts of differences that are part of the geographical makeup of the environment. So contributions, please. I want to hear your heritage stories. I want to hear, or we want to hear your heritage stories. How can we use heritage to build tourism for our people in the Caribbean? Okay, so now I'm going to have to hand over to Atiba because I'm speaking far too much. Maybe you could give us some feedback on what you're hearing so far, my brother.
No, you know what I loved with what Tresina was saying when she started even speaking about the well-being. And I was like, rah, like youth development, heritage, well-being, cultural tours. That's so even that well-being sort of thing, it's like it is it's like it sort of packaged the whole thing, basically. Yeah.
Good. Nice. That's what needs to be created. So, anyone else want to be brave and chip in? We've got Elena. We've got Mish. I can see your camera's on, and we've got the Blue Love Heart. And well, Brother Matthew did chip in at the beginning, to be fair. So, heritage and tourism in the Caribbean. What are our views? What are our opinions or experiences?
Development.
I'm going to have to start calling people out now and taking off their microphones. Am I a co-host? Can I do that?
Me.
Can I take off someone's microphone, make them speak? No, I don't think I will actually do that. That's a little bit too late to put somebody in that position. But it would be really good to hear your voice, hear your contributions.
Good evening, everyone.
Take that, Francis.
I'm not quite sure what we're talking about. I was trying to follow the conversation.
Okay, so we were looking at how heritage, like the heritage of a nation, particularly we're talking about the Caribbean, heritage sites, for example, specific things could be used to build tourism. And so I started off by kind of asking, what is your idea of heritage? What is your experience of it? When you think about it, where do you think of, that sort of thing?
Well, I think with the Caribbean, we're speaking about it as if it's homogenous, like as if it's one place. It's many places, isn't it? So, and each has their own history and their own heritage. So it's hard.
You've muted yourself accidentally.
Sorry, my parents come from Guyana, and so we're kind of a bit odd in that respect because we're not actually technically the Caribbean, but we share a lot of the culture of the Caribbean. So we're kind of Caribbean and kind of not geographically. So every nation is different. So I don't think you can all put it in one box, if that's how you're gonna call it.
No, I think what we were trying to do is to build, how could I put it, to almost build a little package, should we say, almost a little package or packages of heritage type tours, so across the Caribbean. So not to say that they are homogenous in any way, it's rather to distinguish what heritage is for each area of the Caribbean. So Guyana, you're absolutely right, would be very specific. It's very large, for example. So it's phenomenally large compared to most other spaces. So that's something that Guyana has. You could trek for days and days and days and days in Guyana. Whereas there are other islands that you drive around and do you see what I'm saying? So you're absolutely right. So it was more about looking at what elements of each space would be something that would be attractive. So we're building up this picture.
Well, Guyana's well known for its ecotourism, isn't it? Because of the large forested area that it has. I think I read somewhere that 4/5 of Guyana is like forest. And so people only live on like 1/5 of the land. Quite a lot of the forest is, you can't get there by car or whatever. You have to trek, like you said. You could trek for days, get lost. But it would be interesting for people that are interested in studying the environment and the impact of like deforestation and that on the world, and with the climate and things like that. We share like a border with Brazil. So I think parts of the Amazon rainforest might be in Guyana as well. So and there was this big push on trying to save the Amazon forest, because apparently the world relies on the fact that the Amazon forest is still there. Well,
lungs of the world, apparently.
yeah. So you've got that going for Guyana. Really, it's not really my battery's running low here. It's not really a place where you would go, like, unless you was interested in that. So because of the way the country is, it's well known for its wildlife. So you would go there for that and do the trekking and all the rest of it. And I think even with the Kite Falls, which is one of the world's tallest single drop falls, which is in Guyana.
Well, there you go. That's a classic example of a heritage site.
Yeah. Again, you can get there by plane or trekking through the forest, but I don't think there's any other way you could get there. So
did you see the documentary about enslavement that Samuel L. Jackson narrated about 2 years ago?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so Samuel L. Jackson and I think it was his wife who was a producer. They did a documentary about the experience of enslavement, and they went to various places looking at shipwrecks and remnants of that. And there was a place in Guyana. And in order to get to this place, you couldn't even trek, really. You had to go by river to go through the thickness of this forest jungle. I don't know what the appropriate term is. Rainforest, I think, is the appropriate term.
Yeah.
So you had to trek. You had to take a boat through the rainforest. So they went with these experts. There's African American people, and they went with these experts to actually identify and find these shipwrecks, because there'd been a ship with enslaved people that had crashed somewhere.
Wow.
And there was a whole legend about it, and so they went looking for the artifacts. But so that was an example of something in Guyana that obviously, probably is a heritage thing in itself, because if you've got a ship that's hundreds of years old that was a vessel that carried enslaved people, it would be definitely a heritage artifact.
Yeah. So obviously you've got other landmarks, like famous landmarks, like the one of the world's longest floating bridge, Demerara Bridge. It floats across the Demerara River. So you've got that to go and look at. I've actually walked across it. It's amazing.
How was that?
It was fabulous.
Was it scary, or was it?
It was a bit scary. And the thing is, we walked across it, and it was nighttime as well. It was dark, but it was.
So you can swim well then.
No, I can't actually. And remember, in a lot of the rivers in Guyana, because the land is clay, like when the river sits on the land, the water looks dark. It's not clear water, because of the land. So there's that as well. So yeah, but so you've got the bridge, you've got the Kite Falls, you've got the rainforest, you've got the indigenous peoples, which are like some of the Arawak Indians that live in a different part. I'm just trying to think.
But there's also that. So alongside the kind of, the geophysical aspects of heritage in Guyana, for example, you've also now got the heritage of the Africans enslaved, and you've also got the indigenous. Of course, there'll be a lot more indigenous heritage, I'm sure, evident in Guyana than most other smaller islands, because people would have been able to escape and survive more so than in a smaller place where you could be hunted down and killed in the way that they did with the genocide against the indigenous.
So yeah.
Wow. So there we go. So there's a package for Guyana, and I'm sure there's a lot more there because it's so big. In fact, what about the water? What about the beaches and the sea? Is there anything around Guyana that's okay? We're getting some thumbs up here from Tristina.
Because Guyana's not really known for its beaches because they're below sea level. So the minute you get a piece of rain or something, the place just floods.
Really?
So we don't have much in the way of beaches, but they do have resorts of sorts that you could say is kind of, they've tried to create the beach thing in those areas, but it's artificial, it's not really real. But it's good still. You
it's fun.
enjoy. Yeah, so I went to Splashmin, which is one of the main like resorts there, and that was fun. You could do things like jet ski and that sort of stuff.
Oh, okay, that sounds pretty big then.
Yeah, it's fun.
And there's probably quite a few unusual creatures as well. Like you said, you spoke about the wildlife. I'm sure there's, a lot, again, bird watching and all that sort of thing. So
yeah, definitely bird watching.
So again, another island with a whole host of possible heritage activities or sites, should we say. 7 Mile White Sand Beach. That sounds like a great place as well. Nothing wrong with it. Negril. Oh, of course, yes, I've heard about Negril. That sounds like a beautiful place. So greetings. We've got Elena and Bianca and Blue Love Heart. Would any of you care to chip in? Have you got any experience of heritage sites in various places across the Caribbean? Would you like to go to anywhere? Oh, I love the Love Heart, Bianca. Yeah. Would anyone like to contribute? We've heard about Guyana. We've heard you'd like to visit a few places. Okay. Are there any particular places? Have you got a top 3 or top 2 list of where you'd like to go? Still researching which islands to go to. Yeah. What is the driver for you for deciding which island to go to? Is it money, distance, activities, food? Yes, Antigua's definitely beautiful. I've been to Antigua. Beautiful island. And
Grenada is nice too. Grenada's definitely on my bucket list.
Oh yeah, Grenada, Spice Island. But I'd like to go to, for example, Carriacou. I've heard so much about Carriacou. That's supposed to be fantastic. I've met so many brethren from. For me, what drives me to depend on if I live or visit. Of course, yeah. Well, maybe start with the visit, because I think it'd be, it could be a hard choice to decide where to settle if you were going to determine which island you were going to live on. Would you want to go to a bigger place because you had, more opportunities, or a smaller place because it was more chilled? There's so many considerations. But yes, thank you for your contribution, sis.
Why limit yourself? Why not just island hop?
Well, like jokes aside or whatever, actually, why aren't we doing these things? Precisely, why aren't we, the people of the Caribbean, controlling all of this island hopping and this buying of islands and this, how many private islands do you hear that non-Caribbean people own? And how has this come about? The continuation of colonization. Why are we not doing this and owning these things ourselves? So these are the things that we need to address. These are the things that we need to address. Elena, would you like to chip in by contribute? We've got another. So yes, Bianca's saying you can't go wrong with island hopping. Of course not. That'd be amazing. Okay, so I'm going to bounce it back to you again, Atiba. Whenever I don't have a voice, it's your voice that comes through. So where are we at now? What are you thinking?
Yeah, see, this is, I'm definitely, next one, we need to get like 100 people on it, so you don't have to bounce it back to me, But yeah, it's still going beautiful. Yeah, just youth development, well-being, heritage, cultural tours. That's what I could see coming from this. And obviously island hopping. But yeah, I think those are the key pointers that we sort of brought out from this.
Yes, and we've just had our sister Bianca say she'd like to have a webinar on different islands and what they offer. Okay, that will be noted. Atiba will make a note of that. He is very strategic like that. And I'm sure we can find a way to incorporate some element of that into a future session.
Well, like each, what? Because that's, to do all islands is a bit...
No, it would be impossible to do every single island in one sitting. But incorporate some aspect of looking more closely maybe at some of the islands we haven't looked at. So, for example, today we've looked a lot at Jamaica. We've looked a bit, obviously Trinidad and Tobago. Not so much Tobago, to be fair to our Tobagonian sisters and brothers, but more so Trinidad. We've looked at Guyana. And so, right, so Bianca's suggesting 5 islands. So we could do something where we looked at, maybe more closely at Dominica, say, I don't know, Martinique, Curacao. The opportunities are endless. And so
we can look at, with that, then, if we're going to do it like that, then we could invite the tourism boards on then for that.
Yeah, St. Kitts and Nevis, again, would be really another interesting place to talk about. I mean, it would be great to have, to choose, like you say, exactly, to go to the tourist boards, but also to choose these 5 islands and reach out more widely and really try and encourage people from each of those places to come and represent for your island, represent the heritage sites on your island.
We could call the 5 island tour.
And there you go. You see, you've got
the 5 island.
So thank you so much, Bianca. This is what we want. We want food for thought. We want seeds that will develop into initiatives and maybe change the world, eh?
Bianca's asked, what's your view on St. Kitts?
Yeah, I just said St. Kitts. I mean, what I know of St. Kitts is A Very Small Place by Jamaica Kincaid, which is actually a wonderful book. And also I know there was a couple of academics that came from St. Kitts that did quite a bit of writing, and that's all I know about it. A Very Small Place, Jamaica Kincaid. Very good book, all about St. Kitts. In fact, I think it's actually on my table. I might have to pick it up and flash it. I love to promote good authors and good books. But I'm afraid, sis, that's all I know about St. Kitts. But what I would say is that it's interesting because sometimes when there's the beauty of literature, it's really descriptive. So when you read, certainly when I read, I'll own that statement, when I read that book, it was so descriptive, the way it went into the kind of the environment in St. Kitts. It did make me feel a bit like, yeah, I get a feel of it. So maybe read the book. I don't know how easy it is, in terms of tours either, and how much St. Kitts gets spoken about. So thanks for raising that. Oh, Montserrat, for example. Has anyone been to Montserrat or know anyone that's been to Montserrat? Have any connection with Montserrat?
I know a few people from there, 1 or 2.
And so the reason I mentioned Montserrat is because of the volcano. It's volcanic. So that could be an interesting thing. Some people love that sort of thing. I remember there was that volcano that destroyed half of the island. So again, there's a history there. Elena has put a message in, which is that Grenada, my island, you have to go and visit. Friday Fish and Grande Anansi Beach near the main town, and Annandale Falls. And it has 4 waterfalls, and you can hike up the big one. So there we've got waterfalls. You see, waterfalls are so fantastic. We're really blessed with waterfalls in the Caribbean. I don't know if people realize how wonderful. I mean, when Mish mentioned the waterfalls, one of the longest waterfalls in the world is in Guyana. It just shows you what we have. But yes, sis, you took your mic off. Are you going to say something, Mish?
Oh, no.
No? I went when I was in Benin the last year, and I was with actually some Rasta people from Guadeloupe, and we were told by some Beniswaz people, oh, there's a wonderful waterfall. So we all got excited and we headed off to this far off place, and it turned out to be like this trickle. And while they thought it was fine, all of us from, you know, the sister and the brother from Guadeloupe and myself and that, we were like, no, this is not a waterfall. Because for us, you know, we come from islands and nations where the waterfalls are like rapids. And so it's quite interesting, different people's perspectives, but that to me reinforced the beauty of what we have. Because I thought, wow, okay, this waterfall is not a waterfall as we know it, you know? And so we you know, it would be good to hear from anyone else, any other contributions on heritage, any other islands maybe that we could add to the 5-island tour.
No, you know, I did think as well. Probably we should keep it to 3-island tour for now, you know, because within an hour, like cramming 5 islands in, yeah, and with everybody else sort of wanting to contribute as well, it's going to be a bit long. But obviously, like, give each island like at least 5 minutes or something.
Yeah. I mean, yes, we can be creative. But yes, it's important to spotlight. I mean, are there any other islands that people would like to mention? We could do a roll call. How about if we do a roll call of islands that people think ought to be at some point spotlighted? Is there an island that you've never heard of or even been to or would like to go to, sorry, in the Caribbean? Union Island. Okay, Union Island is where now? I know where this is. Expand a little bit on Union Island, Elena. Yeah, St. Vincent, of course, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Okay, kind of like the other one. Another one. So we've got Union Island. Any other islands that people can think of? Anybody interested in somewhere like Cuba, for example? We often don't think of Cuba as the Caribbean. We do and we don't.
There, definitely, Cuba should be there. And maybe some of the less well-known ones that you don't always hear about.
Wow, okay. Now this is one I've never heard about. Now, who's heard of, oh no, you said St. Martin, but what's Nicaragua?
Is that Nicaragua?
No, Nicaragua is a country.
That's what I was thinking, but that's what it looks like.
Okay, I'm not sure it's spelt right, but I think it has, yeah. Oh, you were talking about Nicaragua. Nicaragua is a country in the continent. But it's interesting because so is Guyana, but at the same time, Guyana is part of the Caribbean because it's history, whereas Nicaragua was never part of it. But St. Martin would be, you know, it's interesting, there's 2 St. Martins. I don't know if people realize there's a St. Martin with A, and then there's one with 2 A's in it, spelled the Dutch way. Any other islands that get a roll call, get a shout out?
I mean, you just mentioned St. Martin's. What about Martinique?
Yeah. And interestingly, I don't know if anybody's aware, but apparently, to my horror, I discovered, actually, while I was in Antigua in 2014, that when you arrive in Martinique, it says, "Welcome to France," in the airport. So that's just a little interesting fact. I know, Laura.
Is it still a French, like, colony?
It's still a colony. I knew it was a colony. I mean, in the sense that I knew that politically, but when the brother, it was it was a reparations conference, and the brothers were like, making that point, and they were like, obviously they're quite vexed about this. I was quite horrified, actually, to think that in that time, and that was nearly 10 years ago, that we still had that situation. But yes, Martinique is again, would be brilliant to visit, because you're going to get the French Caribbean experience, which again, in terms of heritage, is going to be different to the English-speaking Caribbean heritage. Anywhere else? Roll call, roll call. Who gets a roll call? Any of this, I mean, we mentioned Cuba, any other Spanish-speaking islands that people might be interested in? Barbados, yes. Barbados, of course, is always going to be in there because it's a great place.
Yeah, Barbados is big on tourism as well.
It's got very good infrastructure for tourism.
They're big on tourism.
I think they're the two major players, aren't they? Barbados and Jamaica on tourism.
Probably, yeah.
In the Caribbean.
No, Bob, you're talking Barbados. Antigua's quite big in tourism. Who else? St. Lucia. Tobago's moving in.
Yeah, Barbados has been
Yeah, no, actually, Barbados and Jamaica, yeah, because at the World Travel Market, ISIS, remember, Barbados and Jamaica both had big stands.
I don't remember as well as you do, but yes, I mean, what I know about Barbados, the reason I would reckon that it is one of those, and you're absolutely right, is that because of the golf. Barbados is well known for very exclusive golf courses. And I think that's probably why as well. And we had they have a strong passport to enter the global border and a big entrepreneurship. We have, in terms of places to look for, Elena's mentioned the Corn Islands. I'd love to know more about the Corn Islands. I don't know anything about them. And then Bahamas. The Bahamas are really worth visiting as well. Yeah. The Bahamas have all these tiny islands all scattered around them. And you see, traveling by boat between islands is another wonderful experience. It's very pricey. Yeah. It's pricey to fly from here, but if you were going to go, I suppose if you're going to go to the States, you can get quite cheap flights. I mean, they're literally, there's literally an airline called like something like Pineapple Airways. It's really cheap. It flies from like Florida to the Bahamas in quite a short space of time. Accommodation is pricey. I've never been on a boat yet. Yeah, well, it's an experience. I think it would be lovely to be able to do like a boat from, now I can't remember which way around it is, but I can't remember if it's St. Lucia to Guadeloupe or St. Lucia to Martinique. There's a very short distance, and you could actually, I'm sure, charter a boat or something, which would be another way of inter-island hopping.
I love that idea of the free island tour thing, you know, like literally. I'm gonna send off an email and stuff to the different tourism boards and see if they can send a representative over to come on and do it, because it would be good. Like if each of them get like 5 to 10 minutes, 3 of them each time, and then people can ask questions and stuff. So that I think that,
and at yeah, sorry, we've got St. Kitts and St. Martin as well being very close. And then Sister T saying, that oh yeah, the power of the 3 and the 6 and the 9. Yes. Yeah.
Just as you guys were talking, I thought of another one. Cayman Islands.
Oh yeah. Cayman Islands are supposed to be really gorgeous, aren't they? Yes. Yes, my brother Matthew. You've got something to say now. We'd love to hear your contribution. Love it.
Yeah, as we come into the final minutes.
Last lap.
We have some real islands in the Caribbean that we never even hear about. Real nice islands and destinations that would be wonderful to visit one day. There's an island called Turks and Caicos.
Caricut, yeah, yeah.
Some kind of thing like that.
Turks and Caicos. Oh God, yeah.
I think it's pronounced Quakos.
Caicos,
yeah. Turks and Caicos. That's it, Caicos.
Yeah,
Look, we got there. Between the 3 of us, we got there.
Yeah. What I'm thinking about these islands, as they are more small, they would be easier to probably visit. As they are smaller islands, you could probably drive around one of those islands in 4 hours. I drive around St. Lucia in one day. What I was going to say about Tobago as well, we have the St. George Fort, Fort St. George. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it was built in the 1700s or something like that. And one more thing about Trinidad, where I'm from, is that the turtles, that could be a very good excursion as well. Visiting the Turtle Beach. And the concept of heritage, is it like natural? Because there's natural sites, and there's like buildings and sites where events took place. Where would really signify heritage? What you think?
Well, heritage would be, it's more about what does it mean to the connection? What does it represent for the country or the nation? So I don't think the issue as to whether it's the built environment or the natural environment,
or the natural environment,
that much of a difference. I mean, if it was a volcano, you know, or whether it was a castle or a structure built by ancestors or
yes, well, that's why I would think there's more heritage, because there's natural heritage and there's heritage.
Yeah, well, I think there's built and there's natural, but they both come under heritage. Okay. And I think the point that Sister Mish was making is that we aren't homogenous as island nations or as nations, but at the same time, also as African heritage people, we're not homogenous, and we may want to have a different experience of heritage. Some people want to literally go in the bush and just, you know, and other people want to see more about the history in the sense of looking at the country. Because if you go to an island or a country or whatever, and you see different what would I say, in terms of a timeline, you can see different things that were built at different times, and that almost, it will correlate to the history. So you might see something, the remains of a structure that was built in the 1400s. So you could say, well, at this time the Spanish were doing blah 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 blah, and the Portuguese were doing blah blah blah. And then by the time you get up now to the 1700s, now you're talking about the French. Now you're talking about the French are in there and stuff, and they're fighting the English. And then by the 1800s, you know, as either you know, in the English speaking Caribbean, it's the English. You see what I mean? So you can look at, and then you see, you know, what happened during the 1900s and the 1930s, when there was a lot of labor movements in the Caribbean, and how things change, you know. So I think it would depend on like what aspect of heritage you're really interested in.
You're looking at, okay, sure.
Yeah, so I think packages could be built around different things, or you could have a mixture, like one day or 2 days you're going in the bush, and you know what I mean, in the hills. Exactly.
Yeah, sure.
Exactly. So I think we can be flexible and creative, you know.
Yeah, that is very interesting. Sure. Yeah, man. The diamond going wonderful so far.
The diamond's sparkly enough for you.
Yeah, the diamond shine.
They're sparkling.
For real.
Good. We also had some messages about the Cayman Islands being off the coast of Cuba, and Sister St. Bart as well. Good one. I'm fascinated about that part of the Caribbean. So that's the Cayman Islands being close to Cuba, and also Elena mentioned the Corn Islands that was mentioned before are actually off the mainland of Nicaragua, close to Venezuela. So it must be near to Trinidad and Tobago, because Trinidad and Tobago, we are 7 miles, is it? Matthew, my brother, I'm relying on you. 7 miles off the coast of Venezuela we are, or is it 6?
Yes, definitely.
It's definitely 7,
not
isn't
far.
it?
Yeah, not far.
Because we can
miles.
actually, on a clear day, if you stand at the tip there, you can actually see the coastline of Venezuela. I mean, my mother and them used to get on boats and go across to Venezuela for parties and stuff.
If there's a good swimmer, you can even swim.
Yeah, in the 70s, that's the sort of thing that used to go on. I'm sure you can't do that now legally. because of, immigration rules and all that sort of thing. But yeah, people used to do that. So the Corn Islands must be near Trinidad and Tobago as well. That'd be interesting to know.
That's why Trinidad overpopulated with our Venezuelans at the moment.
Well, we should never ever say something like
no, what I mean, there are some that came the right way, but there are some that just use the boats as usual. That is, we just describing the closeness. We ain't describing their situation. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, it's all personal thing, but I always try to discourage the idea of borders being respected because we should be free. Free to travel, free to move. But yes, we have a lot of all down by St. James and everywhere. It's just all like, well, I've forgotten what they make. They make arepas or something. You know, like the Venezuelan food. Everywhere you go, it's all Venezuelan food. And some of the road signs, in down by St. James going that way are in Spanish now.
I didn't get chance to experience their foods as yet as much. Yeah. Because the influx was like from 2017. Yeah.
Well, I was there for most of 2016. I'll tell you, there was a lot of Venezuelans there already.
All right.
All down there was all Venezuelan music and food. It's because of Chavez, the political situation. Chavez is very left wing. And unfortunately, a lot of the Venezuelans, though, that did come to Trinidad are more right wing because they didn't want to be under the rule of Chavez. But anyway, there you go. Yeah. It's ironic that once upon a time we spoke Spanish, or the population in Trinidad and Tobago spoke Spanish, and now it's coming back round.
Yeah.
Life is a cycle.
Some people say they come back to take the country.
Well, that's probably it'll be interesting. What we're going to be colonized by the Venezuelans. That would be an interesting one. I don't think Trinis are going to allow that to happen somehow, but we'll see. So we're going to be coming to an end in a few minutes. We started late, but we will carry on just for a minute or two just to see if anyone else has any further comments or contributions, suggestions for islands. We started looking at, we've mentioned so many islands now. Elaine has made a good point about how boat ride accents change in language in Belize. Yes. So we mentioned many places: Belize, Cayman Islands, St. Bart, Corn Islands. We mentioned St. Kitts and St. Martin. We mentioned Montserrat, Jamaica, Trinidad, the Bahamas. We spoke about Antigua, Barbados, Guadeloupe, Grenada, Union Island. We have spoken about quite a few islands, and the idea of the kind of tour of 3 islands gives us so much choice. We've spoken about so many wonderful heritage sites across the Caribbean. The Blue Mountains and Dun River in Jamaica. We've spoken about now I can't remember the name of the falls, but the second largest falls in the world being in Guyana, the Demerara.
I don't know where it comes in the pecking order, but I've heard them say it's one of the tallest single drop falls in the world. But I don't know where that falls in the pecking order.
What is it called, sis?
Kaieteur Falls. Kaieteur.
Right. And a Demerara. And of course, we heard about the Pitch Lake. We heard about the Trinity Mountains in the beautiful island of Trinidad and Tobago. And I've forgotten the name of it. There's a coral reef in Tobago. We didn't even mention that. Famous for going in a glass bottom boat. I've been there and it's fantastic. And I went when I was a kid, but it's really fantastic. The coral reef in Tobago. We mentioned Grenada as well. So we've mentioned, we mentioned Cuba. We've mentioned a lot of places. So I think ultimately what we're saying, the conclusion from this is that there are so many opportunities for heritage tourism in the Caribbean. There'll be places like our brother Matthew said, there's multiple small islands that we might not even know about, little spots, little paradise spots. And it's for us to explore and get as much information. We've had a wonderful suggestion by Sister Bianca to do this kind of focus, specific, very, very kind of drilling in, put a microscope over some of these islands and really focus in. So I think we've had a lot of food for thought, a lot of really interesting things, and I love where this is going. And so it now is for me to hand over to the man himself, our brother Atiba, who of course is responsible for all of this, and let him close us out. Thank you all.
One love, man. Oh my God, this like the first few sessions that we ever done of this today as well, as small as it is, or as well as it's been so informative and it's been so compact, and moving forward I could see a lot coming from this. That 3 island tour that Bianca gave the suggestion of, that was beautiful. Like I said, I'm gonna get in contact with or contact several of these tourism boards and see if they can supply us with somebody to come and give us that information. Bianca, also, I did send you a message because I don't know if I know you, but I don't think I do. So if you would like to be added in the Diamond Roundtable WhatsApp forum, do send your number or whatnot, and so that we can obviously keep that communication going as well. But yeah, aside from that, this has been a beautiful session. Blessings, you all. I'm gonna get in contact with the people if you all know anyone as well. But this has been a very insightful meeting. So one love and blessings.
Blessings all. See you next week. Peace. Thank you.
Okay. Would you like to send your number, Bianca? Okay, let me just type this in just write this down real quick. One love, I'll take it down, and yeah. Yeah, I've got it, Bianca. Anyway. Mm-hmm.